Our third and final presenter is a woman who believes empathy is the key to transformative change in our world. Through her work, she's inspired thousands to embrace empathy as a force for good, personally, organizationally, and socially. Please welcome to the stage the founder of Purposeful Empathy by Design and a member of IWF Canada, Anita Nowak.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, women. All right. I have been studying the power of empathy for 15 years, and I've come to two conclusions. The world needs more empathy, and empathy is our superpower. So my goal today is to inspire you to turn up the volume of empathy in your life. If you do, you'll be healthier and happier, and if we do it collectively, we have the power to change the world. So let's start at the beginning. What is empathy? Is empathy stepping into someone else's shoes and seeing through someone else's eyes, or is it feeling what someone else is feeling? Actually, it's both, because empathy is two types. There's two forms of empathy. I want to bring this to life by looking at this image. Now, when you look at this glorious photograph of this girl smiling like sunshine, I'm seeing your cheekbones rise, right? You're in a smile. But what happens now? It's almost impossible to hold the same facial expression, and that is because we are in emotional resonance thanks to our mirror neurons, right? It's like when we watch somebody stub their toe, and we wince, right? That's a phenomenon known as affective empathy, and it happens to us. The second form of empathy involves perspective taking. It's something that we control. So when someone's telling us a story and we're imagining what it's like to be in their shoes, we're engaged in cognitive empathy. Now let me bring this to life by way of a real story. So about 15 years ago, I was waiting in a long lineup to send a package through the mail, a parcel during the holiday season, and it took about 30 minutes for me to get to the counter. And when I did, the woman who greeted me was rude. And I don't mean just having a bad day rude, she was hostile, and I remember feeling like I wanted to call her out on it. But at that time, I'd been learning about the neuroscience of empathy and that we could actually become more empathic with practice. So instead of escalating the situation, I looked at her and I said, "Are you okay?" And there was a moment when she was trying to discern if I was being sarcastic or passive-aggressive, but she knew I was being earnest, and she burst into tears. And she said, "I've been working double shifts for 2 weeks straight. My son's at home with a fever and I'm getting sick. It's 3 in the afternoon and I haven't had a lunch break. I'm just plain exhausted." I reached across the counter. We were holding hands, both of us, with tears streaming down our cheeks. 10 seconds earlier, I despised the woman, and now we were locked in an empathic embrace. Now, if you can relate to that story, either as me or as the sales clerk, you're engaged in cognitive empathy. And guess what? Empathy is good for us. It lights up the same pleasure and reward centers as a good piece of chocolate cake, being high on psychedelics, all right? It's true. Our bodies feel better too. When we feel emotionally connected to someone, it actually reduces all of the stress hormones and replaces our body with the feel-good hormones of serotonin and oxytocin. There is only one problem, though, and that is that we can't empathize when we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. And the neuroscience about this is crystal clear. But in 2024, our lives are full of stress, whether it's deadlines, whether it's inflation, geopolitics, existential threats. So no wonder at an aggregate level across the globe, rates of empathy are on the decline. So what happens when we can't access empathy because we're feeling strung out ourselves? Well, our well-being suffers. It impacts our intimate relationships, how we engage with our kids, and how we show up at work. So, as leaders, what can we do to extend empathy when we're feeling stressed out ourselves? I'd like to suggest 3 things. The first is to practice self-awareness. We spend a lot of time in our heads listening to our thoughts and very little time listening to our bodies, this intelligent organism that is giving us real data in real time about how we're feeling. Do we have the ugly butterflies? Are we breathing shallow? Or is our heart racing? All of those are clues that we're stressed out. And then when we gain the self-awareness, then it's possible to actually practice some self-regulation. What is that essentially? It's taking our stress level from up here down a few notches. And one of the most effective ways to do that is through something that's available to us at all time. Nobody needs to notice you're doing it. It's free. It's through our breath. So I want to offer a breathwork exercise called box breathing that we can all do together. So indulge me, all right? On a count, we're going to count, and we're going to take in a deep breath for 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and breathe out. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Now, if we do that 2 or 3 times, guess what happens? We engage our parasympathetic nerve system, which means we're feeling just a little bit calmer, and that's when it's possible to access empathy. Finally, we also need to practice some self-empathy. I don't know about you ladies, but I'll have a really productive day and I'll slam through my to-do list and I'll put out fires. And then laying in bed at night, guess what happens? I'm ruminating over all the things I didn't get to. I don't know if any of you can relate. We're really hard on ourselves. So let's do something else together to practice some self-empathy. I want you to rub your hands together until you feel warm. Okay, and when you feel warmth, I want you to put them on your heart. And I want you to just say to yourself in your mind, today I'm doing the best I can. Today I did the best I could. All right? Let me share 2 more things with you. I assume you know about the UN SDGs, right? The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that were launched in 2015 to fight climate change and end gender discrimination and poverty. Well, did you know we only have 6 years till the deadline and we've achieved 12% of the goals? It's not good, but there's something we can do about it, and I would like to introduce you to the Inner Development Goals. So this is an open source initiative that was launched in Sweden 3 years ago, and the IDG framework represents a set of 23 skills that we can develop to be the kind of leaders that I think we need right now. Imagine if we all cultivated skills like complexity awareness and intercultural competence and perseverance and, of course, empathy. I believe we'd live in a totally different world. And finally, what would happen if we all decided to turn up the volume of empathy in our lives? I'm sure you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The idea was that once our baseline needs get met, we aim for higher order needs until we achieve self-actualization. And I think this room is full of women who are self-actualized. But just before Maslow died, he wrote about how wrong his own model was. He said the pinnacle of human development is not self-actualization. In fact, it's self-transcendence. The idea of being of service to others and of something greater than ourselves. And I believe extending empathy or practicing purposeful empathy is like the on-ramp to self-transcendence. So, the world needs more empathy. Empathy is our superpower. And if we decide to lean into empathy, not only can we improve our own lives, but yes, we can change the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. You gave a really clear roadmap for embracing empathy as individuals. In your book, you write about empathic leadership and workplace culture. What is the business case for empathy?
Okay, guys, the business case for empathy is strong, all right? About 8 years ago, I'm just going to get the slides back up, I started posting daily on my social media empathy posts. I never missed a day for 8 consecutive years. And then, 4 years ago, the most unusual suspects were writing about empathic workplace culture and empathic leadership, with good reason. It's like the corporate world caught up to the importance. So if you think about leaders in the C-suite, this is an interesting statistic. 84% of CEOs believe that empathy matters to the business bottom line, but 7 out of 10 fear showing empathy in the workplace because they fear they'd be less respected. But we know that employees are craving empathy in the workplace, empathic leadership. It matters to stress and burnout. It matters for toxic workplaces and psychological safety. It matters for engagement. You have a lot of presenteeism in the workplace right now. It matters to all the EDI conversations, and it matters to the young generation. So the business case for empathy is strong.
You also, in your remarks, mentioned the SDG goals, and empathy can be applied here. How do you connect the individual to the collective?
Right. I welcome every member of the IWF to join the movement with the IDGs. Check out the website. Right now, there are chapters all over the world. There's growing one per day at the momentum that things are going. And people are learning about the framework and how to develop those skills so that they can become the leaders that we need for tomorrow.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Your work reminds us that we can live lives that are better for each other and for all people around us.